Well, you haven't changed your numbers, but you're watching this very closely and have big concerns about what this could mean because China is such an important market.
I think everyone's watching it closely. It changes day by day, and we're all hoping that it ends quickly, but things seem to worsen. There's definitely very near-term impacts, meaning that a lot of things that Tim Cook talked about last quarter, which is that the sentiment towards Apple was positive as they exited the quarter, it's clearly turned negative, right? So if you're going to sell, let's say he's lucky that this is a low volume quarter. So if, let's say, China's going to buy 6 million phones, if that gets cut back by 2 million, there's $1.5 billion of revenue that's gone and 15 cents in earnings. But if this extends into the December quarter, where China's going to buy 10, 11, 12 million phones, and if it worsens, where China doesn't even allow iPhones to get purchased, then the impact to earnings becomes much more significant.
The impact right now is just that there's anti-U.S. sentiment in China, and they don't want U.S. products. Is that the situation?
I mean, look, Tim Cook talked to Jim Cramer about this. He talked about it on his quarterly call. He used this as a positive last quarter as far as exiting the quarter and entering this quarter, that sales were recovering because relationships were improving. Now you're seeing a lot of press reports. I think you guys were just running some roll on that.
Yeah, you heard the trade war. That
has impacts on consumers. I've seen this over the past 20 years when Qualcomm was having battles in China and how they could move volumes one way or another. So certainly the trade wars do have an impact on the consumer sentiment and how people are buying products, and the operators themselves and how they sell the phones.
How long-term of an impact have you seen in the past? If this was something that Apple managed to weather pretty quickly, how do you compare that to what you've seen in the past with Qualcomm? Is this a situation that would last for weeks, for months, for potentially years?
I mean, Apple's pretty important to China also. They're employing 1 million plus people. There's a lot of jobs that are created there. So I don't think they want to, when you talk about these doomsday scenarios where they somehow prevent Apple from making phones, that seems a little far-fetched at this point.
Because they're cutting off their nose to spite their face in that situation.
And they make good products, right? So I'm not sure it's going to be long-term. We're still early enough in the year before the next cycle comes in the phones that if we can repair the relationship, I don't think Apple is irreparably harmed. But again, if things worsen and Apple starts looking to take manufacturing out of China, that could have a longer-term impact. I've had companies that have ripped their manufacturing out of China, moved it to Vietnam and places like that. Yeah. That's not easily coming back, right? Once you choose to leave, that's it, right? So China has to look at that as part of how this trade war goes.
If you were Tim Cook, though, would you be thinking about your supply chain in a significantly different way?
You have to.
And how?
I mean, you have to be looking for and talking to your partner, Foxconn, in terms of other locations around the world where you can move manufacturing. And I know people have talked about this taking 2 to 3 years. I mean, isn't this what Tim Cook's specialty is? I mean, this was part of the reason he got this job in the first place, is how do you handle the supply chain? So if this is his expertise, he should be planning now in terms of how to think about start moving some of that.
Have you looked into the cost, timing, and where he might do that?
I mean, it's really expensive if you're going to move it quickly, right? So that's when people talk about 2 to 3 years because you're trying to do it cost effectively. If you look at the companies that have done it in the most recent quarter, it has been a very negative impact on the results, both in terms of the cost and the impact of revenue, because all of a sudden your manufacturing stops and you can't supply the demand that's out there with your existing chains.
So you haven't changed your numbers yet. And when you say that, you mean your earnings numbers for the quarter, for the year, or are you talking price target too?
Revenue, earnings. I mean, obviously there's greater risk, so you could argue multiples are a function of growth and risk. The stock has come in, right? We had traded up to parity with the market. Now we're back to a two-turn discount on the market. The market has obviously come in. So, look, it's a day-by-day thing. Things are happening pretty quickly, but unfortunately, in the last couple of days, it seems like things have gotten worse.
When you're looking at sort of broad indications of what to do with this, do you follow the headlines? Do you follow every tweet? Do you follow every interview with a Chinese ambassador like we saw over the weekend? Do all of those things kind of pile into this?
I mean, Twitter is obviously an important medium given how our president uses it in terms of the trade war, so we absolutely follow that. And yeah, every kind of utterance is important to get a sentiment on how the reaction will be to Apple on the market, because they're clearly an obvious target that has not yet been targeted here.
So what would you tell people to do today, even though you haven't changed your numbers on this?
I mean, look, the stock
is 179.
The stock is pulled back, and I think, look, if 2 million phones come out of China in the quarter, that's the range of guidance is $2 to $3 million. So right now, we just have the company performing at the bottom end of a guidance range, right? It's not dramatic, but if China makes a more aggressive move that's targeted specifically at Apple, that's when I think you have to. And like right now, again, given the importance of Apple to China itself and the risks that they would run in driving Apple and their employment out of there, I think there's still some amount of cushion in that. And I don't think we should let emotion take over in terms of thinking the fear. I mean, obviously, keep an eye on it. But ultimately, I'm not sure that this is something to panic about at the moment.